But I'm going to give a little bit of background, first of all, into my original thinking of this. I used to think that anything good required hard work, required my mind to be really in it. And I had to think hard in order to get good results. It would be like, no, I've got to work hard, working hard, really concentrate, focus, squeeze my brain in order to get the good stuff out. So the only thing on my mind was, I wonder if my mind can get really relaxed before I come back inside and start working. That's the only thing. And it was just like, wait a minute, this is so cool and so easy. I don't have to do anything to have a quiet, relaxed mind. And it's me and my best and everything.
But it seems like what you're saying is it's almost that friction, mental friction, is getting in the way. It's getting in the way of us accessing our innate skills and our learned skills.
Well, all that was really going on was I was taking what I was thinking seriously. In an innocent yet false paradigm about how human beings actually were. And I love that I've seen something different that's changed my experience of life so dramatically with next to no effort.
You might be expecting this podcast to discuss hot baths, meditation techniques, and breathing exercises. But really, those are only just pressure releases, and they don't fix the true cause. The true issue is a contracted mind. And a contracted mind creates stress, upset, frustration, and impatience. A relaxed mind creates inspiration, connection, fresh ideas, and solutions to intractable problems. We're going to explore how you can relax into presence. This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. We're going to be talking about how you can let go of the brakes, how you can get the brakes off so that you can achieve what you want to achieve in life. I have a special guest here today. His name is Wyn Morgan, and he has been a coach for a little while, it looks like. Past 20 years, he's been in the personal development world, working with organizations, and then more focused as a coach consultant lately. I was introduced to him through Nikon Gormley and was really taken by how he talks about connecting with other people, connecting with clients, connecting with those that you care about. Welcome, Wyn. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to be here, Rich. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. And we were having a conversation before the podcast began about what we wanted to talk about. And you were saying that you have found something that has given you a lot of leverage in life lately. Something that you've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing it, but I'm not seeing it this clearly until fairly recently in the last handful of months. And it goes back to how you introduced today's podcast about the ultimate leverage, as far as I understand it, today at the time of recording. But I'm going to give a little bit of background, first of all, into my original thinking of this. I used to think that anything good required hard work, required my mind to be really in it. And I had to think hard in order to get good results. And the harder I thought, the better I would do. That's what I used to think. And I'm pretty sure that was drummed into me in school and ever since. Now, school was a while ago for me, but I'm pretty sure I carried that paradigm of life of me at my best until fairly recently. Certainly, I don't know, 12 years ago, that would have felt like almost heresy that I would think that there was another way. It would be like, no, I've got to work hard, working hard, really concentrate, focus, squeeze my brain in order to get the good stuff out. Well, at some point I realized around 10, 12 years ago that that wasn't the case, that when my mind was more relaxed, I would have fresh ideas. I would have, I don't know, more for less. I'd get more out for less input in, or less, I don't know, focus or tightness in. But I don't know if I saw it that clearly then. Fast forward now to last summer, and in conversations with a friend, we were co-running a workshop in Prague at the Listening World Summit. And in the preparation for me and him, and it was Dr. Aaron Turner, we were talking about running this workshop and just exchanging views and comments, the week before on Zoom, and then the morning of the workshop, we were having coffee together. And it just dawned on me that, wait, what he's pointing at and what makes absolute sense is the only thing I might need to pay any attention to as to how relaxed my mind is. And the more relaxed my mind is, the better it is. It was just that clear to me. Here's what I hadn't realized. I knew that having a relaxed mind was more enjoyable. Having less on my mind was enjoyable. But I thought it was what I could do once I'd achieved success. And it was I don't know, what would the word be? It was the reward I had for working hard would be to have a relaxed mind. Turns out, what I now see is that when my mind is relaxed, what you described in what you witnessed in the workshop and the webinars I was running with Nikon, connection's natural when I'm mentally relaxed. Having good ideas is natural when my mind is relaxed. Being present to the task at hand with great focus and enjoyment and all of that happens when my mind is more relaxed. So I feel better and I do better and I enjoy it more. I didn't know it that clearly until, I don't know, sometime in the summer. It was just like, it just became obvious to me. And then through the summer last year, I was having my kind of like ritual, if it's not raining here in the UK, my morning coffee is in the garden. And at the time of recording, it requires a lot of layers to have coffee in the garden. And in the summer, I'm sitting out there in, just a t-shirt and a pair of shorts. And the only thing on my mind was, I wonder if my mind can get really relaxed before I come back inside and start working. That's the only thing. And it was just like, wait a minute. This is so cool and so easy. I don't have to do anything to have a quiet, relaxed mind. And it's me and my best in everything. So that's my starter. That's my appetizer for our conversation today, Rich.
It's so natural to think that putting pressure on yourself and pressure on your mind is going to get more out of it, because that's the way some things work. You put more pressure on the toothpaste, more toothpaste tends to come out. But it's really interesting to see that that's not how the mind works. And we can tell. So I personally had an insight. It was after listening to your conversations with Nikon. And after listening, you had another session as well that I really appreciated. And I had this realization that I'd been going through these cycles of my life where I would find something that I really liked to do, and I would do it with a relaxed mind, so I would enjoy the heck out of it. And then at some point in doing that thing, I would think, okay, I want to become really, really good at it. Now it's time to really kind of figure out the ways of being good at it. And of course I would go and research the best ways of doing that thing. So for a while it was teaching. I was a teacher for 5 years. And I went to a whole bunch of classes. And then I would then, over time, very, very subtly, kind of like the frog in the pot, just increase the pressure on myself to the point where it became very unenjoyable. And also, like you're pointing out, I became less good at it. I was less connected to the moment. I was less connected to the people around me. And it became less enjoyable for them too. So for my students, it became less enjoyable. And then I would go through and put more and more pressure because, well, that wasn't working. And then I would have a complete breakdown and then go in a completely new direction. And so I was a weight loss coach for 5 years. Repeated the same cycle, loved it with low pressure. Increased the pressure more and more, and then breakdown. Nobody was happy. My clients weren't happy. I wasn't happy. So it's really interesting to see how these cycles and patterns play out in our life over time and also day to day. Because I had the thought that if this is happening like this to me, oh, it's got to be happening like this to other people.
The word pressure that you just mentioned is something that I think I hear a lot from people, that pressure is a good thing. And it can look like it in exactly the way that you just described. And I had to take a look at that for myself before I could talk about it from a place of knowing within me with other people. Now, the spike of pressure, having a thought that, oh, I better get started, otherwise I'll be late in submitting this assignment, or wait, I was going to get the proposal across to the head of people by Thursday. That's a good spike, right? But then if I innocently think about the pressure of it, I'm now in my head about it as opposed to attending to the task at hand. But the reason I'm bringing this up is people can often mistake pressure for focus. Focus is great. Pressure narrows. Well, certainly I can speak from personal experience. It narrows my mind, and I'm less able to do it quickly, which is efficiently, and well, effectively. It's amazing what happens when I'm not thinking hard. And I'm astonished by some of the things. So just before, I had a half an hour gap between my previous client and the time you and I were due to meet. And I was writing the proposal for them and me to work together. Knowing that I didn't have the luxury of time to overthink it, I was amazed at some of the words that were coming out from my fingertips onto the keyboard. I'm going, well, I haven't said it like that before, but that's really pertinent to this person. That is a great summary of what they and I talked about for the previous hour and 20 minutes. With no pressure, just expression. Just expression. But here's what what occurs to me, and when you and I first talked one to one, which is only a few weeks ago, and you were telling me about your baby and everything, and said hi on Zoom. When I go into the corporate world and they have the same kind of thinking that you and I just shared. Hard is better. Hard is the good results. That's where it is. The more I squeeze out of my brain, the better results are, all that kind of stuff. What's noticeable every time I ask people to take a fresh look at it, whether it's groups or one-to-one in businesses, to take a look at what skills we as humans have naturally and are born with, which is why I was going back to your baby. The vast majority of the skills that people really value and think that they don't have enough of are the things that we are born with. Abilities to connect. Babies don't think, they just do it. They just have it. It's inbred. Another example is listening. I mean, their listening is great. Listening is so good. Now, making sense of it all, they might not have words for everything, but sometimes having words for things actually narrows our ability to listen. And we are listening, we filter an awful lot more over time. Our minds are open as babies, every single one of us. And we're in awe of the stuff that we see, hear, and taste and touch. And also our ability to get over things is great. I mean, I remember my brother is only a few years older than me, but he's got 2 grandchildren. I love to play with them, and I love to watch them as they in their play. Because I remember once when the younger one came out of his mother's car to visit, and he'd been asleep in the car and then was being woken up. Not a good idea. He was 4 at the time, right? So he was like crying, and then he saw me, and he just lit up and started laughing. Tears were still coming down his face, but he got over it, would not have a second thought about what he felt 10 seconds earlier. That's also true for us. So we're resilient. We listen really well. We connect really well. We learn without giving ourselves a hard time for it. And every one of those are highly valuable for people in work. So the reason I think that matters is if those things are innate skills that we're born with, all we can ever do is be further away from how good we were when we were born. Or another way of saying it, putting more thought into the system makes us less good in real time, in that moment. It brings down our capability in that moment if we're really taking what we think seriously. And every time I do that, and that can be a whole day or sometimes 3 days with a group in a corporate setting, their minds are blown that they can do more with less on their mind. And consequently, their ability in every part of their work, their abilities go up, and so is their enjoyment and engagement, and it's just lovely to notice.
Like that idea, pressure makes diamonds, and it's not the case when we're working, when we're wanting to connect, when we're wanting to be confident or creative. I had a metaphor come to me a little while ago that I like to share around this. And my dad was driving one time, and he has a paddle shifter. So he's got an automatic transmission, but he can control it. He can change the gear of the car with these paddles on the side of his steering wheel. And he accidentally pressed it on the highway. And so he's then starting to press all of the different buttons to correct it. And suddenly, instead of going 60 miles an hour, we're going 15 miles an hour on the highway. Cars are zooming by. And it wasn't until he kind of stopped finicking with it, he let go, that he was able to press on the gas and the car sped up and did what it was supposed to be doing. And I think that points to how we're kind of overcorrecting and using our minds and really monitoring everything and how am I doing? How can I make it better? Why am I not doing as good as I think I can do? I need more confidence. I need to go and see a confidence coach. I need more creativity. I need to access that somehow. And instead of like what you're talking about, just kind of letting that natural experience of life, that natural ability flow through us, we get caught in this idea of trying to capture it as though it's some limited resource, trying to bottle it and recreate it and make it a formula. And that tends to make us not as good at it because we're so focused on it. We're so focused on how we're doing instead of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Yeah. We're focused here on our own doing as opposed to the task at hand, whatever that might be. And I know one thing that will always bring a human being's ability to do any task down is self-consciousness. Me on my mind will absolutely, in that moment, I will be doing what your father innocently did in the car, which was like lower the gear and go 15 when it could have gone 60. Just doing everything less well. You know, the other thing that just sprung to mind is a few things I loved in what you just said. You talked about confidence and creativity, two other things that are innate in human beings, naturally born with. Like, a kid doesn't care if they're confident enough because it doesn't even occur to them that that's such a thing. That's a made-up concept. People, kids just do. They don't worry about how they feel doing it. They just do it. That's my wish. And every time that someone comes to me for confidence is for them to see how much that is not required. It's just a myth, but our ability to be present to the task at hand and not have our focus on ourselves. Endless. And creativity. We're amazingly creative as kids because there are no boundaries to what we can imagine. Then as adults, we put boundaries. Oh, I can't think about that. I can't, we just, we dampen it all down. We dampen it all down. There's something else popped into my head in listening to you. A really random thought. So talked about the innate natural skills and how having more in our minds can lower our ability to do those innate skills. But I remember some of the other skills, of course, are learned. So I remember the first time I went to Japan, and this is going back not far off 20 years ago now, and I went on holiday to Japan because I love Japanese food. That's why I went. I went to Tokyo so I could just taste every food they could have. And in my first night there, I walked into a sashimi restaurant, and I'd spent a lot of my 11 hours on the flight from London to Tokyo listening to tapes, because it was that long ago, listening to tapes of how to speak Japanese, just the basics. If I just had 12 words or phrases, I was doing fine. Anyway, I was really tired. I arrived at, I don't know, 9 a.m. or something, and this was now 6 p.m. with kind of like the time difference and not much sleep overnight on the flight. And I couldn't remember a word of Japanese. And I'm sitting there in the restaurant, and I just said English menu, and the English menu was pictures, not nothing else. I thought, oh, okay, well, I can point to what I want. But I felt so embarrassed and down. I thought, wait a minute, you've been trying to learn so I don't look like the idiot I now think I am. And I got so down on myself. And of course, nothing was coming to mind. And then I just started relaxing. And then I was eating the sashimi, and all those words came back. In the moment I relaxed and was starting to enjoy myself and had a lot less on my mind, I remember to say, this is lovely and thank you. Even basics like that came back. And then later on, I was saying I'm very tired, and they were so happy, and I was enjoying myself, and that enabled me to regain my access to something I'd learnt, a learned skill. So that just popped into my mind in listening to you share that, of how powerful having a relaxed mind actually is. It's in everything.
And it's easy to grind at something because it seems like that's going to create enough friction that it's going to create traction for us. But it seems like what you're saying is it's almost that friction, mental friction, is getting in the way. It's getting in the way of us accessing our innate skills and our learned skills. And it's great for learning too. So if you want to learn a new skill, if you want to learn something that you would like to maybe play an instrument. I did have one client actually that he was trying to learn how to play guitar. And he told me the story about how he was working with this guitar teacher, and he kept on kind of getting frustrated and down on himself, and come on, you've learned this, you know this, and every single time he would do that, he would start to perform worse. He would play the wrong chords, he would play the wrong notes, and get even more frustrated with himself. And he thought it was about him too. It's like, oh man, he turned it on to himself. That judgment kind of tap turns on. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Why I thought I was making improvements, now I'm sucking. And then his coach pointed it out to him. His teacher pointed it out to him. He's like, well, hey, how about you just set the guitar aside and just let's listen to some music. And they listened to a little bit of guitar music and just kind of enjoyed that. And then he came back to it and he was able to play the guitar. It's so simple, but it seems really hard because our minds want to go in that direction of self-criticism and pressure and grasping and clenching. I'm a little bit curious as to, do you have any insights as to why our mind likes to go in that direction? And maybe how we can follow an inclination back towards that relaxation of who we are.
Well, here's just what I think, and I don't know how fundamentally true or not what I'm going to say next is, but it seems to be really true for me and my own experience of life so far. It looked like a good idea for me to do what you just said, into judgment, into pressure, into thinking harder, because I learned that that was a good idea. I wasn't born that way. I learned that. I picked that up along the way. Told it repeatedly, and at some point I probably took it on as a good idea. And what I've noticed is when I saw that that just was a blatant untruth, my mind would move in the direction of, the deeper part of my mind would move in the direction of a different way. It was less enamored by my judgmental thinking and self-conscious thinking. Because I knew it was just taking me more in a direction that wasn't going to be helpful. And that seems to be more attuned to what I'm now noticing, is that I have such a dislike for feeling bad and having a tight mind. It just goes. Because it no longer deeper within me does it seem like a good idea to follow that judgmental feeling. Now, I ain't perfect in that because I'm human, right? The thinking's going to look real to me, especially if I'm in a low mood that I do not control. And I do not say when it happens or when it comes out. But when I'm in that lower mood, yeah, it'll look more real to me and I'll follow it a bit longer in my psychological innocence, in my humanity. It's not real harm because I'll bounce back inevitably. You know what I remember thinking this, because for the longest time I've been wondering to what extent is the best of me natural, is the best of me innate, and I just get out of the way of the deeper best of myself. Or the impersonal universal mind that is smarter than my IQ. I didn't like that idea to begin with. I had to get over that egoic thinking. But it turns out when I started noticing that there's stuff happening in my body all the time that is far smarter than my IQ could ever do. I mean, I couldn't think for a cut to heal. I couldn't think for the nutrients in this herbal tea, or herbal tea, depending on where you're listening. For those nutrients to come in, for the antioxidants on, for how much water makes sense from this tea to be in my bloodstream, and where all that hydration goes. Far more complex than I could ever think of. The fact that my pupils dilate without me being conscious of them. The fact that the hair on my chin will grow without attention. Naturally. And it seems to me that that's not just about my physical being too, that it's also my psychological being, my spiritual being, my well-being requires no attention because naturally my physical being will return to a state of health. So will my psychological. And this is from somebody who's had many countless bouts of depression, had a breakdown in his mid-30s, was an insomniac for a year and a half, diagnosed with a mood disorder, you name it, in that realm, right? Well, all that was really going on was I was taking what I was thinking seriously in an innocent yet false paradigm about how human beings actually work. And I love that I've seen something different that's changed my experience of life so dramatically with next to no effort.
I want to speak to something in that because there was something that I heard that I thought was really funny. That trying to think your way into creativity or confidence or any of these innate abilities is like trying to think your beard to grow longer faster. It's about as the same amount of effort for the same amount of results.
Yeah.
And
That's
the cool
amazing.
thing is that you recognized that, oh, it just happens on its own. Like my beard is just going to grow whether I think about it or don't think about it. And I'm going to be confident, and sometimes getting it, the thinking about it gets in the way of it, of course. But if I'm not thinking about it, it'll just happen naturally. It'll grow like my beard. I don't have as good a beard as you do, I think. I've got a little goatee and patchy, but my hair will grow whether or not I'm involved. So that's really cool to know and to recognize that you're just kind of gonna go about life and live life whether or not your analytical intellectual mind is doing its machinations or not.
Yeah.
And that also means that those machinations are optional. They're not necessary for us to live our lives. And sometimes that means that we can live with a little bit more peace and a little bit more mental freedom and mental quiet. I've noticed that for myself as I explore this understanding. It wasn't through anything I did, but the quiet came. And that was something that I was trying to create really, really hard before. I was meditating 2 to 3 times a day, doing yoga, doing qigong, doing anything that I could think of to create that. And what you've seen and what I've seen a little bit and I'm still exploring is that, oh, that's just kind of what's there under the surface when everything else falls away.
Yeah. Yeah. The phrase that came to mind in listening to you just now was, I forget how well I made. And I don't need to will my beard to grow. Nor will myself to fall asleep at night. Nor will myself to wake up. Nor will myself to stand up. Right now I don't have to anyway. Maybe in a few years at some point it might happen. I don't know. But right now it just feels like so many things are this natural. I don't need to will my eyes to focus on the screen where you are. I don't need to will my vocal cords to make a sound that is a certain pitch, tone, speed for you to be able to understand. It's just, that's amazing. And I never gave it the respect until I realized what was always going on. So what you were pointing at just now.
So it sounds like a part of this is the recognition of what's already there and what's always been there.
That's what it's been for me. That, yeah. What was always there but hidden
Mm.
under a lot of supposition, myths, things that seemed like good ideas but were only a good idea once to somebody, but not what would the word be? Not reversing or reverse engineering a good idea that happened once to somebody to then make the same thing happen to me and everybody else over and over again ad infinitum, because that's just not how we work. It's nice to know our natural selves like that. Incredible. Which also fuels my intellect and fuels the IQ, not the other way round.
I'd like you to speak a little bit more to what you just said, because I think that we can kind of get into this place where, okay, if I control it with my intellect, then I've done great things and I'm going to be better. And that's just a myth that I think I've lived with. Absolutely. I think a lot of us live with. But the fact that it works the other way around is just a new paradigm for a lot of people. So say a little bit more about that, if you would.
Hmm. Well, as soon as I hear the word control, I have this habit in my mind that my mind goes one way, which is, huh? Now, this is from a self-confessed former control addict. Okay. Now, control requires an awful lot more of my intellect to be involved. My analytical thinking, judgmental thinking requires more cognition. Under the premise that the more I do that, the better the outcome. It turns out that's just wrong. In the way that you talked about the person with their guitar, what the guitar teacher did with them. Once they relaxed, they were able to play the guitar again. One reason why I didn't thrive in golf was I couldn't learn to hold the darn club lightly. I was gripping as if, I don't know, as if I was going back to one of your earlier metaphors. I was trying to squeeze this so hard that I would get a diamond out of the carbon fiber. I was like, what on earth was I doing? I couldn't learn to let it go. So therefore, my golf didn't improve and my body would fail. And then I thought, okay, not the game for me then. At that point, right? This is before I learned the little that I now see. And it's funny that I do the letting go of control, and then the automatic pilot kicks in, which is more powerful. And an example of that, here's me trying to override, right, and trying to regain control over something else. So back in, I think, early summer or late spring of last year, I was sitting in the garden on a Sunday morning. I'd worked 6 days that week, and I'd worked the Saturday, and I think quite into the evening because I had a client in the US. And I was sitting out there with my coffee going, oh, it's so nice to have a total day off today. No work, not even going to think about it. I've got some admin, but I can wait till Monday, not today. And I'm enjoying the warm late spring morning. And I had this idea. You could do a course on depression. And I went, I'm not going to do that today. It's my day off. Well, you could really help people if you did a video course on depression. And I went, I'm not working today. I'm not working today. And I know what will happen if I work. I mean, I might burn out because I know I've had that habit when things have been, when I'm really in the flow of things and I keep going, I can burn out. So I just sat there and then, okay, here's the first video. Here's the second video. And it's just like downloading from somewhere. And I quit arguing. I quit trying to override and regain control over my day. And I come, I don't know, the 15 yards from where I was sitting in through the back door of this part of the house into my office. And within, I don't know, 40 minutes, I write 14 videos. Here's the bullet points of each one. And it was so easy and I had no thinking about it. It was just like, I looked and I went, well, that's freaking genius. I couldn't have come up with that. I couldn't have come up with that myself. That's what I thought. And at that point, I was going, wow, isn't it nice to let go of control and to see what can happen? I couldn't have done that if I tried. Couldn't have done that if I tried to control it. But it did. It got made. Something came through, really fresh and clear, that was so simple and easy. And I had an easy mind and a relaxed mind doing it. So enjoyable too.
Is that letting go of control, which is a relaxing into the unknown, which is hard for the intellect. I was talking with a couple of clients, and I see this pattern sometimes playing out where we're kind of going along with life, and the intellect is doing its thing and life is doing its thing, and then something happens that shows the intellect that it's not in control. Could be a health scare, could be a something that happens in the world, could be a relationship ending, something like that. And then the intellect kind of flips out a little bit, and it then says, grasps onto fear of the unknown, fear of not having control. And this is what happened for me, and what happened for a lot of my clients, is then it grasped harder on at what it thought it could control. And then all of a sudden, things that weren't a problem before become a problem. Sleep becomes a problem. Our relationships get more challenging. We have more conflict. And then this just kind of becomes a pattern, but like you're pointing to, we are made with this innate ability to relax that. In fact, it's hard. It takes a lot of energy to have all of this fear running and to be holding and contracting. It's difficult. I was listening to recently a George Pransky video, and he talked about how the emotions that are more clear, that tend to feel pretty good, are lighter. They're more easy. And I heard that. And the emotions that are more contracted tend to not feel as good, tend to feel like a lot of stress and pressure and fear and upset. They're more difficult. They take more energy. They take more of our mental contraction. And so they're harder. And our natural inclination is to be light, is to let go of those things. So we will let go of them, but if we're in that confusion, that mistake of thinking that we need to hold on, thinking that we need to grasp and control, we'll do that for as long as we can.
For us, and for as long as we think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because and George and his wife Linda have done more for me in this understanding than anybody. And where I'm at now is to recognize that those feelings that have effort in them and aren't so tasty, they're not so, you know, self-consciousness, this is horrible. Ooh, whatever this other thing is, like, I don't know, pressure, stress. To me, they're wonderful gifts when understood. Because if I remember when I'm feeling them, that they are signals telling me I'm in my head. of making something up right now that isn't required, then as soon as I've noticed, I'm done. I'm back into the easy feeling, back into the neutral, natural state of ease and simplicity. So they're great signals telling me I'm on the wrong track. I didn't know they were my friends. I thought they were something to battle against. No. Seen for what they are, they're amazing gifts. That's another example, in my opinion, of how well we're made. The signals to bring us back home.
I really love this conversation. And what I'm hearing, and maybe you can clarify this a little bit, but what I'm hearing is that it's a good idea to let go of the belief that pressure makes things better, that pressure makes diamonds. And it's a good idea to have a recognition of the easefulness that we can experience is really good for us and is actually better for our ability to be creative, connect, create, be confident. And then there's also an element of seeing just how well we're made, just how awesome we are when we've let go of that pressure. Our natural inborn gifts. And when we see them and we see how myriad they are, how plentiful and bountiful and powerful they are, we won't have that inclination to go into the stress and pressure because it just won't look like a good idea. It won't look like the best option anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how I'd respond to that question to clarify it, I think we all have to see that for ourselves and take a fresh look at it. Because, yeah, you're right. If you've got a piece of coal and you want a diamond, pressure's a good idea. That's for coal and diamonds. Maybe life isn't about carbon into diamond. Maybe life's different. One metaphor does not a life make. So I loved what you said about letting go of the belief of that. And then my invitation for you listening, wherever you're listening to this, take a fresh look for you. Don't take our word for it, because that would be an intellectual pursuit. Take a look. Fresh. See what makes sense.
Well, Wyn, I so appreciate your time and your energy and your focus. And what I would like, I know that you have a new offering to share with people, that you are helping coaches to reflect on their lives a little bit more. And you're helping them to relax their minds while they're coaching and take pressure away from what they're doing. Share a little bit about that, share where people can find you. And I have my daughter is going to be joining us for the last part.
Oh,
So,
lovely. Hi.
hi.
Hi. Yeah, well, I started mentoring coaches back in, I think it was 2014. So it's 11 years now. And as the years go on, I've noticed what makes a bigger impact, and the biggest impact in them being better coaches, and therefore the better the coach, the more thriving their business tends to be naturally. And I'm honing it down into the things that really matter to make a coach be incredibly transformational and world class in that their clients would have life-changing insights. So what I do for each individual is to offer something over 12 weeks that we review their real calls with clients, which is not everyone's favorite thing to do. But when I started doing it regularly 10 years ago, it absolutely changed my ability for clients' lives to change. So I'm sold for me, given what it does. And we listen to 2 calls a week, and we get together every 2 weeks and review and see the things that work and don't work, how great their listening is, how well they notice the one thing that if the client understood that about being a human being, that would absolutely change their life. And how well they help that one thing be a realization within the client without pushing, making insights and realizations happen that will absolutely change their client's life. As I love playing that game, that's the leverage that I can see in my work in mentoring coaches. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to share that. And how people get hold of me, I'm not difficult to find. Having a name, Wyn Morgan, there aren't many of us. So if anyone puts into their favorite search engine of choice, you put my name, Wyn with a single N, Morgan, and the word coach, you'll probably find me. And I'd be delighted to hear from you with whatever feedback on this, or if you want to have a chat at any time, I'll always make time. So thank you, Rich. I've really loved talking with you again today.
Thank you, Wyn. I so appreciate this opportunity that you've given us to relax into the best version of ourselves instead of trying to find it through your intellectual pursuit. So, and I was able to look you up. I was able to find you, and definitely if you are a coach, reach out to Wyn. He can take your business to the next level. So thank you, and she's dancing.
She is.
She likes to dance. Oh, yes. She gives you a round of applause. So
He is somebody who knows how to enjoy their time.
Exactly. She is my teacher more than anything. So
yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Thank you again, Wyn.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks for listening.
This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. I'm on a mission to help people release their mental tension because I know that it helps them to be more capable, creative, and compassionate human beings. And I need your help. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like more resources, visit richliferealization.com. Your vibrant life is a single thought away.